Hi! In this video, I want to share my thoughts on the recent Ravenhawk session. Every time I play Dungeons and Dragons, I remember how much I love Dungeons and Dragons. So many people have had terrible experiences because they have played with non-role players, with people that do not roleplay. But once you get the roleplay going, once the characters are describing their actions, that is, the players are describing their actions, rather, the actions of the player characters, the game master is presenting the situation with pure description. Magic happens. The setting comes to life. You are not playing a game anymore. You are living the scenario, the adventure, the experience. You are there. And when it comes to combat, I think so many people need guidance when it comes to running combat in tabletop role-playing games, specifically in Dungeons and Dragons. Some people actually become so traumatized because of the terrible, sluggish way that combat is carried out that they dismiss it completely, or they almost want to remove it immediately from the adventure, from the session. Like, oh, combat, I just think like it resolves in 7 seconds in game time and that's it. They are so afraid of carrying out those combat encounters because they do not roleplay those combat encounters. Now let's talk about the different parts of the session. This video is going to contain spoilers, of course. The first fight against the Strad zombies, those zombies that, depending on your attack, a piece of their bodies could fall off, and the arm or whatever can attack the player characters. That encounter, the fight in the balcony section in the upper floor, I think that was pretty good, and immediately the three players, RPG Grandma, Big Bad RPG, and Eli, they got into character immediately, thinking in terms of as if they were actually there. I think it was very clever on Eli's part to use his mirror image, and while RPG Grandma was fighting off as Moo, the zombie on the rightmost part, Big Bad RPG as Jace, he was facing one-on-one against this other zombie, but he kind of like the arm of the zombie fell off and it started to attack him as well. And so it's great that, for example, when Eli cast his mirror image upon Marcus, he took care of the zombie, and as he tried to make his way to help Moo, the zombie with an attack of opportunity tried to get him, but during his attack he rolled a fumble and he almost fell off the second floor, hanging for his dear life. So now it was Jace trying to rescue Marcus while fending off the attacks of this zombie. Great part as well on the when it comes to Jace using his clerical abilities to damage the zombies. The fight alongside the non-player characters, that is Ismark, Irina, and Boris and Igor, it all happened very smoothly, and this is a great tip for those of you that are running a D20 based system. When you have who knows how many participants in a fight, it doesn't mean that you have to be running every single individual combat or segment of that fight. Focus on the actions of the player characters, and the fights that occur with the non-player characters, you can handle those with some simple rolls or based on the roleplay actions as well. So maybe you decide to make a percentage roll to see how well they are faring off when it comes to the non-player characters, squaring off against the enemies. Maybe if you roll, they have 50% chance of winning, you rolled 50 or below, and they are doing pretty well. If you roll above that, they take damage, and so forth. Or give priority to the role playing. We'll talk about that in a few moments in another combat encounter. I also think that the way that they are interacting with the world excellently. When it comes to, they decided to take matters in their own hands. Speak with this Mad Mary. Let's see if something comes out of that because of her missing daughter Gertruda. when they approach the temple, their interactions with the cleric and his son Doru, that was turned into a vampire, specifically a vampire spawn. He was quite famished, but I think that RPG Grandma's idea as Mu was excellent, using that popular vampire lore of using the wooden stakes. Normally, a vampire spawn in optimal conditions and that is not reluctant to fight others, it would be quite an impossible task to get that stake in there. But with Mu wrestling the vampire and with all of the other non-player characters trying to get that stake in there, it's giving priority to roleplay. Don't play it as a video game or as a board game, as in, oh no, it's a vampire, so no, you need to fight. I attack, you attack, I attack. No, use the creativity of the players. This is a tabletop role-playing game. Dungeons and Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game. Role-playing game. It's not only a game, there's also a role to play. Describing your character's actions, coming up with original ideas. If that makes sense in a realistic way within the fictional context, handle it like that. So they took care of the vampire problem, even though they had to sacrifice their scroll of resurrection of Raise Dead. That's a very valuable scroll. Later on, as they continued, the way that they interacted with the Vistani, it was great. They got a bit of like a taste of the cheerful side of the Ravenloft setting, because in Barovia things are, almost everything is against you, almost. The encounter against the wolves, that's another perfect example on how to run a Dungeons and Dragons combat. Put the non-player characters fighting against their own opponents. When there are many enemies at the same time, 6, 8, 10, 12, the non-player characters could have their own segment of the fight, and that way you won't be rolling initiative for all of them and, okay, now this guy attacks, oh, okay, oh, now this other guy attacks, oh, okay, and the player characters are going to be a bit inactive. They are going to be losing that sense of engagement. In other fights, of course, you have to roll for the non-player characters as well. Like in the case of the against the vampire, I had to make a roll and to take into consideration the participation of Ismark and Boris and Igor. So it all depends, but whenever you can handle battles by segmenting the sections of the fight, the different let's say sub encounters, and focusing the action on the player characters instead, do it. I also like the way that travel was carried out, the journey, moving through the forests, the valleys. The player characters are already in character, rather the players are in character. If you are role-playing, you're already there, in the fiction, in the fictional setting. So you don't need to add too many embellishments. You don't need to describe, oh yes, and the greenery of the trees, it reminds you of the flags that you saw back in Greyhawk. Oh, and now you see how the river is slowly flowing. You can feel the moisture of the... No. That over-exposition and excessive exposition, it puts players to sleep. A lot of players, I think, rather, a lot of non-role players, those that do not roleplay in tabletop role-playing games, I think they actually participate in sessions to fall asleep while they are eating Cheetos and drinking soda. They want like an ASMR experience, falling asleep while the game master is reading a story to them, and suddenly they wake up in order to make some rolls, and then they go back to sleep. Terrible. I also like the cliffhanger, the way that the game proceeded, the pacing. They are now storming this windmill that has some great evil within it that is causing the children to disappear. Right? Who knows what happens to those children? Overall, great session. I also enjoyed the character development from Jace finally understanding this power that is guiding him, the Morning Lord. In the case of Marcus, because he has made a pact with a fiend to obtain his powers, now he notices some sort of dark connection between him and this demi-plane of dread. When it comes to Mu, let's see if Mu can find some link between her own background, the weird, strange technology of barrier peaks, perhaps her own alien world, and this strange demi-plane of dread. Well, thank you for watching this video. I am looking forward to the next session. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. And remember, it is better to roleplay and fail in character than not to roleplay and fail as a player. Once again, thank you, and see you later.